Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello there, welcome along. This is Business Connections Live. Steve Hyland with you here today. The program for entrepreneurs, SMEs and business owners. And we've got a really cracking show lined up for you. A little bit different today, in fact. I'll explain more right now, in fact. On today's show, we're going to be discussing customer experience, success strategies that work. Now, joining us from the US via Skype is Gordon Treadgold, international keynote and business speaker. And joining me live here in the studio today is Charles Bennett, Managing Director of The Next 10 Years. Gentlemen, it is lovely to have you with us in the studio. Can I just say thank you very much for joining us from Florida, Gordon. What time is it in Florida at the moment?
It's 8:07.
So you're up nice and early then?
Always.
Great to have you with us. Now, for those people, we'll kick off first of all with you, Gordon, if we may. For those people that don't know who you are, just give us a brief 1-minute summary of your career and your background.
I spent 25 years in IT, leading large change programs, $100 million, running $200 million departments. Background in turnarounds, and after doing that for 25 years I started to write, speak and coach on leadership, and recognised as one of the top leadership experts by Inc. magazine. And my last book, Fast, which is we're going to be talking a little about fast success strategies, was a finalist for Chartered Management Book of the Year.
Do you think that a lot of people get it completely wrong when they're coming and they're looking at the strategies within business? I mean, you've been in business, you understand what business is all about. Do you think a lot of people just get it hopelessly wrong when they go into this, or is it just an oversight that most businesses make?
Well, given that 80% of businesses, according to Forbes, fail within their first 18 months, I would say many get it wrong.
Which is a bit of a frightening thing. Charles, let's bring you into the conversation. Charles Bennett, it's lovely to have you with us as well.
Pleasure.
What's the association between you and Gordon?
Gordon are effectively working together because we're bringing together success strategies, which he's been working on over the last years, into some of the more advanced approaches for customer experience and customer experience innovation. And it's the people aspect of customer experience that is offering the biggest challenge, and I dare say for the companies that take advantage of it, the best opportunity.
From your point of view, you're UK based.
Sure.
What do you think the biggest mistake that companies make these days?
I think there's a very much Pied Piper style approach to a lot of organisations. So there's a traditional approach to customer experience which everybody else does. And my point is, if everybody's doing the same approaches in much the same way, how can you use the concept of customer to differentiate yourself, where there's new approaches, new strategies, a hell of a lot of new things you can go and do, can completely turn a way the companies actually align themselves to the concept of customer. And those that do, the 1% that do, dominate their markets.
The question to the pair of you then is, do a lot of us play or even pay lip service to this? Is this just something that companies think they should be doing, and in fact they go through the process of doing it but actually don't do anything with it?
I don't think you'll find a company in the US or in Europe, in fact many parts of the world, that won't say customer experience is either important, very important, or possibly even critical. There is an element though that organisations still tend to think of themselves in the context of what they do. So it's the product or the services they build, and they think about that. And customer experience tends to be the almost like the icing on the cake. It tends to be that that sort of thing that they do in terms of the interfaces to the customer, understand what they are, try and understand them, try to measure the emotion, try to make them better. Whereas in reality, we should be looking at customer experience considerably more centrally in the context of what we do.
Gordon, you're a Yorkshire lad, is that right?
I am indeed.
But you're living in Florida, and of course you must be being bombarded all the time with the ultimate customer experience, or at least that's the way us Brits would think about the American experience. Do you see big differences across the pond where you are?
I think there are big differences in customer service. There's a customer service culture, but the reason why Charles and I are working together is because we have a very strong joint view that everything needs to be outcome-based thinking, and it's not just about service. It's about, are you delivering the results that the customers want? And a lot of companies are just not doing that. They think that by being more polite, that's going to create customer loyalty, but that's not the case. And there's dozens of examples of customers who provide bad service who are growing, and customers that provide great service that are actually shrinking because they're not outcome focused. And when you ask, do a lot of companies do this? I think one of the things with the approaches that I look at and why we need fast success strategies is because when people believe that they will be successful, not only are they engaged, but they become excited and they work hard to implement it. And a lot of times with customer experience, I think that people don't see how it's going to benefit the company with the approach that they've got. So they kind of do it half-hearted, which then becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, which leads to failure. And I think, I can't remember the statistic, Charles has probably got a better handle on that number, but I think it's something like 83% of customer service initiatives fail. A staggering number.
Which is absolutely staggering when you look at it, isn't it, Charles? That kind of figure is the failure rate that people are accepting in business these days. In any other part of their business, they would not accept that, would they?
Absolutely they wouldn't. They most definitely wouldn't. It's 83%. And that's a fairly recent survey. The problem is with surveys, it can only be as good as the organisations you end up actually talking to. But the reality is, part of this is they don't understand fully the opportunities they could. So when you hear that figure of 83%, it's not necessarily 100% complete failure. It could actually also be underperformance or failing to actually deliver what could be achieved. And a chunk of that is they're simply not aware, because the techniques they have today to understand customer are not advanced enough to give a deep enough understanding. So you've got all these ideas and opportunities and things going past, and they get missed because people are looking at their organisations from a myopic view in the context of what they do in terms of the service or product they build.
Now, this is a very simplistic question that I'm going to ask you right now. Is there one thing, do you think, that most businesses could do that would actually improve the customer experience? Is there just one thing that would actually work and would change everything for everybody?
One really, really easy thing to do is to stop thinking in the context of what you do and start thinking about the context of the result of the customer. So get yourself into your customer's shoes and think about every single step in the customer journey, and think of what you do in the context of making that journey better, or in the context of making the outcomes in there better. So in other words, stop thinking about yourself working outwards, that's inside working outwards, start thinking outside working inwards. So you get organisations, I'll give you an example. It's a much maligned organisation in many quarters, partially justifiably, partially not. Ryanair, for example, have recently stopped thinking themselves as an airline and started thinking themselves in the context of a travel company, because what they're doing goes a lot further than simply flying people from A to B. You can get your hotels, you can get your tours, you can basically get your ride to the airport, you can get vouchers for duty free. There are all sorts of things you can do. So they're thinking about dealing with the end-to-end. So if as a customer, or a company starts thinking themselves in the context of the customer, understanding the customer possibly better than they understand themselves, and thinking about that alignment rather than thinking about, this is my specialisation.
A second, can we just kill the audio from the Skype? Thank you. Sorry, you were saying?
Rather than make our product cheaper, better, faster than our competitors. Because the customers don't care. It's the outcomes they care about, not whether the product's cheaper, better, faster. And there's organisations all the way through business history who focused on the cheaper, better, faster, and it's done them no service. They've wasted tens, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars.
When you go into businesses and you're talking to the managers, do they sit there aghast, or do you see moments of realisation from them where you're talking to them and all of a sudden what you're saying drops into context within their organisation? I mean, I've worked for large multinationals, and the issue that I've seen is that the managers don't truly understand the measurements that they are making. Do you see that?
They most definitely don't understand. And just going back to the earlier part of your question, is I go into an organisation and there is suddenly that, yes. I was doing a breakfast briefing in the city a few weeks ago. Gordon came over from Florida and joined me, and we were talking to about 40 or so different organisations, and the number of people who came up at the end and said, yes, it's almost so obvious. We've got to stop thinking about this in this particular way, and we've got to start to think about things, and that actually challenges everything we do. It challenges the way we structure our companies, it challenges our processes, it challenges our key performance indicators, it challenges how we motivate and empower or give permission to our employees. It challenges every single aspect. But here's the thing. A lot of those things you can do can be affected quite easily. It isn't like revolution and it means, we've got to throw everything out. It means you can make revolutionary steps using sort of evolutionary approaches, and the impact can be quite fast and quite quick.
Gordon, I was just wondering, I mean, the question that I asked Charles a moment or so ago was, what are the big things that people can actually do within their organisations, and do they understand the research and the figures that they are getting back to actually implement into their current businesses, or are they just going through this process?
Well, I think the one thing that people can do is just focus on customer outcomes. Just keep that in mind, and when you do that, I think it gives you a different perspective. And one of the challenges with that is that some of the things that people look to measure might be interesting, but might not be of interest in terms of growing. There's a company here in Florida, Delray Running Club, that I'm a member of, and this is a running shoe company, and they compete with Amazon and continue to grow, even though Amazon offer outstanding service and the same quality products at the same price, because the outcome that they're now focusing on is not selling people running shoes, but helping them complete marathons. So they understand why their customers are buying the products they want, and then help them with that outcome. So they've taken the supply chain a little bit longer. So they offer the training, and they actually run with people in these events. And this is allowing them to grow against a competitor such as Amazon.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to hold that thought for a moment. The pair of you, in fact, hold that thought. We're still going to be talking about why are so many success strategies now failure strategies. What the evidence is to show that customers' agenda, the most important strategic agenda in the C-suite, and why does C-level or customer level not care about the overwhelming evidence? All that's still to come on this edition of Business Connections Live. It's lovely to have your company with us. We are live on a Monday lunchtime. My guest live in the studio with me right now is Charles Bennett, Managing Partner of The Next 10, and talking to us on Skype from Florida. You probably noticed that as Gordon Treadgold, and Gordon is, of course, international keynote and business speaker. I saw Gordon speaking a couple of weeks back, really impressed. And I think a lot of people actually, when we were listening to Gordon, stopped for a moment and they had a second look at the way that they were operating their business. It was a really interesting discussion, and also I just love the way he puts the things over. He's got that wonderful Yorkshire reality about him with a bit of Florida flair, and we like that. Listen, let's look back at last week's programme. We had a cracking show last week. We were looking at all sorts of different bits of technology. We had Adrian Munn, he's the founding partner of Monochrome Limited, about the art of possible, creativity and innovation in business. We had some of the Microsoft, what they call the Microsoft lenses. We had those in the studio. We were talking augmented reality. It was a cracking show. If you missed it, just to give you a bit of a taster, here's what happened on last week's edition of Business Connections Live. You're watching Business Connections Live, and it's good to have you with us. We're live today. Joining me in the studio is Adrian Munn. He is the founding partner at Monochrome Limited.
When I started in my business, I was seeing very simple methods of presenting and promoting yourself online. I mean, most people, the traditional way of doing it is you get printed media, you send it out. And then what business was doing, saying, this online thing, this business for me to promote and advertise. The last time I've seen how to advertise was either on television or from the radio. This new medium has come to life, and it gives me something I can explore. What am I going to do with it? Well, this is the thing. What had happened is that mechanism for presenting and promoting your business has changed, incredibly quickly. You've now got the ability to talk to a huge audience, whereas before it was very limited. We went from print media to digital, or to adverts, the traditional broadcast media, to digital media, which has now become the mainstream. I think companies like to explore technologies and to explore the consumer's passion or need, and businesses' passions or need to adopt something. The interesting thing about all that is that what happens is technology takes a stab at in the dark. It tries something. Even in the 80s we were doing things that wouldn't have been dreamt as possible, but they're trying technology, and then when they find it doesn't work, it's re-architected or re-engineered. Companies adapting, changing all the time. Large, organisations like Microsoft and Apple are always inventing and trying to find new ways of doing things. So a lot of customers come to us with a preconception about what they want, and what we do is try and remove that and just say, let's just explore, what is achievable, what we could do. Once we've done that, that could be quite a significant cost, of course. What we've got to do is manage that by breaking that down into what are called iterations or pieces of work. Because by doing that, we're creating fire breaks between each piece of work, and we're analysing what's been done with the first iteration, how it's changed the customer's perception, what have we learned, what are the pluses, what are the minuses, and also how we manage the investment with the customer. And that's a really important bit when customers always come in with a view, but that's their view. But sometimes we find that the customer's thinking about their own business and what they would want for their business. I need it to do this for me. And what we say is, take your business head off for a bit and think about your customer. What do they want from your website? What do they want from your application? Get it on paper, write out your objectives. As I said before, looking at what is in essence must, should, could, won't or will. Write it out. It's called Moscow. It's a proven technology. Must, should, could, won't or will. Sit down with a piece of paper and scope it out. Create a sitemap and just work out what you want to achieve from either your site or your application, what you're trying to get it to do. The more information we get like that, the easier it is for us to try and model the requirements and get to the specific need. That visual experience, like when you're watching a film, you translate that into what you're doing on your presentations and what you're doing within your website. You're engaging with the customer. And that's the same thing. I always say whenever I do a presentation, I don't put words up on there, I use imagery. Because the imagery are visual cues and a stimuli for your viewers. Video, and say, before I start, let me show you this video. We're finding that we're getting more and more connected. And we've got to be mindful of the fact that, our websites can adapt with personalising content. So as information comes in, our websites will change to present information that's tailored to the user's need. That's going to become more relevant. We're going to find also data, how, really finding out about the sentiment of users, how people connect. My name's Adrian Munn from Monochrome, a digital agency with a high creative and technical edge. If I could say one thing, it's don't fear technology. Understand what the opportunities are for you. That word I say, the comments I mentioned about the art of the possible. Look at what you can achieve and then go back and start looking at what your own business has and look at your own website, your own applications and tools, and think, how do I engage with my customer better? Start understanding a little bit more about what you can do and how you can do things with your site that really engage with your audience, and turn to companies like us to help you. It's not, you'll be surprised just how many companies are, around you that can offer these sort of services and can give you that support. And don't be afraid to sit down and look at what your long-term objectives are, as we've said in the programme, and start looking at how you can start building a solution that's going to help your business long-term. There's many, many ways of in which you can get more value from your digital and online experience for your company. And please don't hesitate to ask, and we look forward to hopefully sharing some of those experiences with you. Thank you very much.
Hello there, you're watching Business Connections Live, and an absolutely fascinating show last week with Adrian Munn there. It really was an interesting one. If you missed the show, can I suggest that you go to our website? There's over 200 hours of great business advice there. If you are an entrepreneur, an SME, or a startup organisation, and you're looking for the advice that you really need to turn your company around, to get it really motoring forward, to just motivate maybe your staff. If you're looking at fundraising at the moment, you're looking for sales technique, it's all there. Everything is there, and it's all absolutely free. And incidentally, if you'd like a show just like this one that's branded to your own organisation, maybe you've got a message in-house that you want to get out to maybe your customers, but probably more importantly to your staff as well. And there is always this kind of filtration system that goes on. The managing director will want one thing, but as it works its way down through the tiers of management, everybody takes the individual piece that is relevant to them, and the message sometimes gets diluted. Well, a program like this will mean that your CEO, your MD, can talk to the entire workforce and have one uniform message going out to everybody that everybody understands, and it doesn't have that interpretation quality about it where you get the Chinese whispers syndrome where somebody says, well, actually what I think the MD meant was. So you can get rid of that, you can eradicate that, and you can end up getting your message out there really clearly to your workforce or to your customer base. Now, if you'd like to find out more details about that, why don't you contact us here at Business Connections Live? It's dead easy. Drop us an email to studio@businessconnectionslive.com. But if you'd rather talk, and we like talking here, you can either give Linda Bazant or myself a call on 01784 256 777. If you want to follow our stream of consciousness on Twitter, then you can follow us at BCL Business TV. Don't forget also our Facebook page. But more importantly, if you want to find out everything that's truly going on about Business Connections Live, and you really want a fantastic resource for your business, well, why don't you go to our website at businessconnectionslive.com, and you'll find all the programs there and also all the business services that we offer businesses just like yours to be more successful. You're watching Business Connections Live. It's great to have your company with me. Got two great guests. We're pushing the technology this week. We've got Charles Bennett here in the studio with me from the Next 10. And in Florida, we've got Gordon Treadgold via Skype. He's an international keynote and business speaker who's joining us as well. Look, you've sat up, Gordon. Thank you. We can see you now. We can see your chin now. All of them. Listen, a question to both of you. We'll kick off first of all with you, Charles. Really, it's about justifying the need.
Sure.
Why businesses need to do this, and also an example really of any businesses that we've all heard of where they've actually implemented this to make it work.
Okay. I think I'm going to sort of give two examples. One is an example of a company who's not done it so well, and a company has done it well, but the results are actually very, very different. Most people have heard of Subway. In fact, a lot of people will have used Subway. It's one of the biggest restaurant chains in the world. I think it's got 44,000 odd restaurants, 26,000 in the US alone. And the concept of customer has been at the centre of what Subway done for a very, very long time. And in fact, they've pushed it even harder over this last 6-9 months as they've started actually looking at customer experience within digital. The whole idea behind the fast food is to make it convenient, quick, healthy, but also very clean and very, very high quality. There's a gentleman or company over in the States called Bruce Temkin, and the research he does with his company, he looks at the 331 top US brands, brings Subway in at number 8. Now, if you're coming in as number 8 at that sort of level, it's very well known. Better the customer experience, better the revenues go up. They really go hand in hand. So here's the situation. Why is it we've got a company where customer experience is as good as it apparently is, but it's been in revenue, not profit, revenue decline the last 2 years? It's actually been in revenue decline, and those customer experience is very good. Now, hold that thought on 1 second. And there's another company in the States.
Well, the thought that's coming out is,
Sure.
Why should I bother? If you look at Ryanair, for instance, yes, they've changed their perception, the way they're now concentrating on the customer experience.
Yes.
But they've grown to where they are by being awful to the customers.
And there's a company out there which actually makes Ryanair look like lobster and champagne. And that's a company called Spirit. Spirit Airlines, it's a Florida-based airline. They've got... I'll just read... This happens to be for a testimonial for one of its customers, which came out only yesterday. This airline is the absolute worst, and I hope with all my heart they go out of business. Do not fly this horrible airlines. And then it goes on into the overall situation. Fracti did a survey of the 72 world airlines. They looked at 1.3 million tweets on social media. Spirit Airlines came absolutely rock bottom. There was a case study of a lady of just a few weeks ago. She actually had an oxygen canister which she wanted to take on. She actually got onto the airline.
Please tell me that they didn't charge her extra for that.
They charge extra, $100 extra for the oxygen canister. They also then went and then said, look, do you know what? We're not sure the oxygen levels are good enough. We're going to throw you off. Even though she said she did not physically need the oxygen when she was sat down. They threw her off and let her alone. And these sort of situations are happening all the time. It is looked on. It's Net Promoter Scores, which is the measure that customer experience companies use to look at how good they are doing it, is absolutely rock bottom. Customers absolutely hate them. But why is it they're one of the most profitable airlines in the world, running at an operating profit of over 20%? In fact, just over a year ago, they were operating at 23%. There was only one other airline in the world was working at a greater operating profit. A lot of people say, oh, that's easy. That's all to do with the fact that it's a cheap airline. There's a lot more to do than that. So we've actually got the concept of customer is absolutely the centre of spirit, but it's not to do with the emotional and the experience, it's to do with something else.
So, Gordon, what's your views on that then? I mean, obviously I could hear you chuckling away in the background there. That's obviously something that resonates with you. What's your thoughts?
Well, just to add a little bit on Spirit Airline, they assessed all of the airlines across a number of categories, and Spirit came dead last in every single one of them. And I've flown Spirit, and I can say it is worse than Ryanair. And when people say Spirit Airlines, it's usually followed by the phrase "never again." And yet they, as Charles said, they run at an operating profit of 20 to 23%. But they're also one of the fastest growing airlines in the world.
So what do you say then when you go into organisations and you're talking to them? If they bring that up as an example, there is an argument that says there is no need then to enhance the customer experience, where the companies are nearly doing it for themselves.
Well, I think we have to say that we have to understand the difference between service and outcome. If you give people a great outcome and poor service, they will come back to you. And Charles and I have a tool that we use to measure how companies are doing, and a nice little quadrant diagram. And companies that are in what we call the reluctant remainer group, which are companies like Ryanair, Spirit Airlines, they can continue to operate at a profit and grow, even though they offer terrible service, because the customer outcome is being met. And we need to look and see what that outcome is that customers want. And if we focus on that, then we can also look to grow. But we'd also recommend that you do both, give them good service and good outcome, because when you do that, then not only are you going to be profitable, but you're going to have evangelical customers who are going to promote you.
So do you think in general, question to both of you, do you think in general that we're looking at the whole customer experience thing completely the wrong way?
I certainly think there's been too much weight placed on on the experience aspect, on the emotion aspect, and we're not thinking about the outcomes. The outcomes generally have less emotion attached to them, but they're a lot more fundamental. And here's the thing, the customer may not be aware of them. And that's where the opportunity for experience innovation comes in. Because if you can create outcomes which nobody else is creating, which actually has value to the customer.
Give me an example of that. Have I put you on the spot now?
Yeah,
but do you see what I mean? You look at the likes of, there are large energy companies that are out there, and they will be talking about wearing the customer's shoes, going the extra mile, and all these kind of things, which can sound, at the end of the day, very, very hollow. But it's a mantra that they will use within their organisation. You may do this within your own organisation at the moment yourselves. You may be giving the lip service that you feel customer service deserves, but in fact you may not be doing any of it anyway.
Sure, I'll give you two. I can give you two very quick examples. One of them, which it could be quite personal to the way people think. Take an insurance company in the context of an insurance company, something damage done to your property, maybe something to do with your car, maybe something to do to your house. One of the things that a lot of insurance companies do is they actually put in assessors to come and check. The reason they put assessors in to go and check is they're checking to ensure that the customer is what they're claiming for is in reality what they're claiming for, and they're not trying to pull fast ones or try and claim for things that otherwise should not be claiming for. Now, an outcome for that would be an experience aspect of this will make the assessment quick, make sure they don't have to take too much time off work if an assessment has to happen. An outcome says, why should I even be doing an assessment in the first place? It's only because you don't trust me. If you don't trust me, why is it you know, I don't want to have an assessment, any aspect of my interaction with the insurance company. You've got to find another way of doing it. Here's another example. You remember that very famous Steve Jobs back in Macworld 2007, when he started talking about, I haven't got one product, I've got 3 products. And what he was actually introducing was the iPhone. And that was the time when he actually took the concept of telephony out of the context of telephony into lifestyle management. Because now we're in a situation we don't actually use our phone for just making telephone calls. In fact, less than 5% of the interactions we make on our phone are for telephone calls. 95% plus, in some cases higher than that, are for doing all the other things in the context of lifestyle. I can go and buy things, I can do my social media, I can look up things, I can read my books. I'm now in a position I can do it on this side, I can do it on this side, I can do it on this side.
So what are you saying then? Are you saying that companies need to trust, just by trusting your customers more, overall you will get a better response and a better customer reaction?
Well, that just happened to be one example.
Well, it's just a thought, yeah.
Yeah, of we don't trust our customers, and that's because that's been the traditional model. And the traditional model says, well, if you're going to claim, I need to check. And actually there's companies out there which basically say, well, hang on a second, why do we need to do that? Because the level of fraud is possibly actually A, not there, and B, just represents an administration or cost overhead, which we completely and utterly dispense with. No, what I'm actually saying is actually stop thinking about just experiential, have I got that right? The experience aspect of what we're talking about. Close enough. We start actually thinking about the outcome aspect of what we're talking about, because those outcomes actually create the basis of why customers come back. So, for example, Spirit Airlines, Spirit create great outcomes, but with 0 experience. Customers reluctantly come back. So if you think about the quadrant that Gordon was talking about, where you've got the outcome and you've got the experience, you've got this strange quadrant which basically says my experience is low but my outcome's high. Customers keep on coming back, they keep on complaining, but the companies in that quadrant seem to absolutely shine. The other 2 quadrants, where there's low outcome and even high experience, there's plenty of examples of companies with high experience but low outcome go out of business. But customers like them. They just don't want to do business with them.
So Gordon, just very briefly then, is it good enough for a company to be liked, or is it better, or can you get away with being disliked but be successful?
I think you've got to focus on giving the customers what they need, and I would advocate any company does that with good service, because when you do that, you're really going to dominate the market. Companies like Ryanair and Spirit Airlines, for example, if people have got any alternative to those, they will take them. So it's we have seen long-term growth with Ryanair, but if anybody could even get close to offering the same kind of outcome with a slightly better service, you will lose customers to it. So you need both ingredients. And I just want to come back to one of the things you were talking about before, about the videos that you offer people, where you were talking about the dilution of message from the CEO. This is what happens a lot of time in customer experience and why they don't work. They set up a program where the CEO says we're going to do this, and it's all about the experience and the service. And as it gets communicated down the ranks, the people that are dealing at the front end customer interaction know that that is not going to help make customers happy. And this is why some of these initiatives fail, because people don't engage with them and don't buy into it because they can see it's not going to work, or they overcomplicate it, and it then needs explaining as it goes down the hierarchy, and by the time it gets to the bottom, you've played Chinese whispers and now you're doing something completely different to what the CEO envisioned, and that's going to lead to the benefits that he was looking for not being delivered.
Interesting. Listen, absolutely fascinating. I hope you're finding it really interesting today. It's a bit theory-based. What we're going to do in just a moment, we're going to give some, maybe if this is at all possible, some practical work examples, things that companies can do, quick changes, quick fixes from our 2 experts here in the studio today to find out maybe how you can turn your company around. And over the next couple of minutes, be asking yourself the question, Is it all about the service, or is it all about the product that I'm offering? How do I deal with my customers? Where am I winning? Where am I losing? What are the things that are right and what are the things that are wrong? And when I communicate my thoughts as a CEO down to my teams, are they interpreting what I'm saying in a way that actually is going to be beneficial to my organisation? All that's to come on this edition of Business Connections Live. Well, you're watching Business Connections Live, a very interesting programme today. Two great guests with me, Gordon Treadgold in Florida, international keynote and business speaker, and Charles Bennett, managing partner of The Next 10, who is also a keynote speaker of note as well. Both of them working together, kind of a true international company, the Florida base, the UK base. I take it across Europe as well. You do a lot of speaking across Europe, don't you, Charles?
Absolutely, and the Middle East. I go down to South Africa as well.
I shouldn't really ask the question now, but are the problems the same across the board? You've got Gordon in the States at the moment, so the land of opportunity, but a land that you would imagine gets customer service right. And then, you know, you're across Europe. Is everybody got the same problems?
Well, the way we structure our companies have not changed for 250 years. So we've actually structured our companies in the context of division of labour approach since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Now there's companies now looking at the way we structure ourselves slightly differently. So companies like Amazon through Zappos, Americans will know that company very well, and Google are experimenting with other approaches. But because we actually structure ourselves very much the same way, we're still focusing on, I create a product, I create a service, I try and produce it, I try to sell it, I try to market it, I try to build it, research it, whatever I happen to do. So therefore, the approach to customer experience is on the top of the way we structure. So that gives myself as an fantastic and really interesting opportunities to go into organisations in areas I've never met before, I've never been before, and I can actually derive change very, very fast.
Hold the thought.
Sure.
Ask him a question, he'll talk for an hour. Fantastic.
I can hear Gordon sharpening.
Yeah, you can hear Gordon chuckling in the background there, yes. All right, let's go back to another program, and this was an interesting show as well. From Losses to Profit, this is with Julianne Ponan. She was the owner and CEO of Creative Nature and Superfood brand. She was on the programme on the 23rd of May in 2016 on Business Connections Live 132. She was talking about developing a superfood brand, and within an 18-month period she'd put the company back into profit, raising the brand's profile and launching new product lines with just 2 members of staff. And what Julianne was doing, she was concentrating on the brand but also on the customer experience and what people were feeling. They were buying in to her business effectively, and by doing that it made it a huge success. So going back nearly a year or so right now, going back a year, here's what Julianne said on her edition of Business Connections Live.
I'm Julianne, owner of Creative Nature Superfoods, and I'm here to talk on Business Connections Live. The main things that I'd like for you to take away is time management. Learn to value your time as much as possible. It's really important that you're not doing mundane jobs throughout the day. Make sure you're making that next sale call and making sure you're closing that deal. The second is making sure you have the Yes Gene team. Employing people that aren't making your business go forward is pointless, just to say that they're on your team. If you're doing the job that they should be doing, it's time to get rid of them. And finally, it's really important to delegate. I know when you're a small business, you want to wear all the hats in your business. But at the end of the day, you're never going to be good at everything. I'm not good at technology, so I outsource it. So it's important that you are learning what you're good at and what you're not, and outsourcing.
Really good advice actually there from Julianne, and outsourcing really seems to be, for the small business owner, outsourcing really does seem to be for many people, the panacea to all success, because they can take that strain away from their own business, outsource maybe some of the skills that they've got, but they can outsource it and therefore give themselves more time to grow their business. Great show. If you missed it, don't forget, you'll find all the shows, over 200 hours of great business advice at Business Connections Live. Just go to the website and check it out. And that programme was Business Connections Live 132. My guest on today's show from America is Gordon Treadgold. He's in Florida at the moment in the sunshine. It's early morning out there. The sun beaming in through his window, at least it was earlier on. I think, what was the temperatures there yesterday, Gordon?
5 degrees.
How many again? Sorry?
25.
25. What would it be in Yorkshire this time of the year? -3, something like that, was it? It's practically spring, isn't it? Gordon Treadgold, as I said, in Florida, international keynote and business speaker. And in the studio with me is Charles Bennett. He is the managing partner of The Next 10. If you want to check out their website, by the way, that is the website, isn't it? Just checking.
No, it's not.
It's not. OK, that's lucky we won't show it then. Let's look at some of the concrete things that businesses can truly do. We've talked about the theory behind it to a certain extent. So what can a business be? How can a business emulate? What can a business do to make it work for their business? We've heard about the airline where they don't do any of it, but they're still successful. Is there somewhere in between where if you do customer experience and get that right, and you run your business properly, you will actually see the whole thing explode and be really successful?
Well, there's a lot of things you can do. I mean, I think first and foremost, I want to bring Gordon's ideas into this as well when I'm talking about it. A lot of people don't understand to what extent a customer experience will impact their business. It impacts pretty well every single revenue, cost and service indicator for the organisation. People understand the concept, well, if I make my service better, I can get my revenues improved. They sort of understand that bit. But well-executed customer experience strategies can actually directly impact the cost base. And that's very important when you're starting to produce propositions for customers in order to make them the level of attraction. Price is important, and it's particularly important in certain subsectors of the customer base. One of the things that companies absolutely can do is start to get more of their people to be thinking as if they are the customer. So if there's be one simple thing. Now, the things that I get involved with is I start showing approaches to uncovering outcomes. But it takes a chunk of time. So if I was going to get the material that Gordon and I work with to be resonating in the organisation, we can do it quickly, but we need a couple of days of your time. We don't have a couple of days, we've literally got minutes. But one of the things companies can do right from the very, very start is start to map out every single interaction they have with a customer and start thinking a bit from the customer perspective, the problems or opportunities that are actually going through the customer's minds, and therefore right from the moment they start thinking about that problem opportunity to being informed of that problem opportunity and follow every single step down that path only from the customer perspective. And then everybody within the organisation, particularly small and medium-sized organisations, start to thinking, what can I do to deliver against that? Now, this just touches the surface of what it's all about, but it represents a fundamental change in the attitude. So stop thinking about what you do to start thinking about them. Now, if you're a one-man company, that's how you survive. If you think about your customer, you'll do pretty well anything or everything to do something which is going to be a benefit to them. But as you start getting larger, you have to be able to subdivide. But it's no good just having that approach. You've got to be able to put the right framework around it to deliver it. And I think, Gordon, you may have a couple of ideas here of the sort of framework you can put around to make what's a very, very simple concept, just scrape the service, but what very, very simple concept resonate in a practical way. Gordon, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the fast approach that I advocate is a simple framework, but I think it all comes down to the focus and making sure you're focused on the right things. Stop trying to sell products and services and start trying to sell outcomes that the products and services deliver. Because I think once you make that mindset shift, it will make you look at things differently. A lot of times I see companies selling products or service to customers that are not a good fit, and when they're not a good fit, they're not going to give the outcome that they want. Also, as well, when it comes to creating the right customer experience, if you take care of your employees, they will take care of your customers. And if we start delivering outcomes, the feedback that your staff are going to get is one of a much higher appreciation, rather than just being polite and offering good service, which is going to engage them even more. Because now, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we all want to feel that we've done good. So if I can deliver great outcomes, I'm going to become more engaged, I'm going to be more cost efficient, I'm going to be more productive. So it really is about thinking about outcomes. Stop thinking about products and services and start thinking about outcomes. And a lot of companies are structured around product divisions or service divisions. So as Charles says, we've structured companies over the last 250 years slightly misaligned with our customers in mind. It's all about what we do and how we're going to serve their needs rather than the outcomes that they're looking for.
But I mean, you two guys, you turn up and you go into a large corporate or a large organisation. I mean, I know that you've been in the situation, Gordon, where you've been the other side of the desk. You've had the consultants come in and spread the good word to you. You know, what would you say then to these CEOs, these managing directors, these entrepreneurs? Because they're being presented with this kind of information on a daily basis. It must be difficult for them to see the wood from the trees sometimes.
I don't think that everybody is going in and saying focus on outcomes. That's not a message that resonates with me. I do a lot of consulting with entrepreneurs, and the first thing I get them to focus on is, for them, as my clients, is revenue, because it's revenue and profit that they're interested in. And as soon as we make that mindset switch and start moving them forward, we put in the strategies in place for them to be able to generate that. But in terms of repeat business with me, I get fantastic testimonials and repeat business because I'm focused on the outcome that they're looking for. I'm not trying to sell them a coaching program or an approach that they can use that I think will be great. I'm focused on the outcome that they're looking for, and which for a lot of entrepreneurs is just revenue. And we overcomplicate things, and we end up putting strategies in place that are, one, complicated, and two, don't meet our needs. And we just need to fix that, and it requires us to be much more simplistic in what we're doing. And a lot of consultants don't sell simple, because when you sell simple, you can actually put yourself out of business. A lot of the consultancies I've worked with create complicated solutions so that we end up needing them for longer.
That's very interesting. Where do you sit on the fence on that one? Complicated or simple solutions that are made to look complicated?
Oh, I think it's simple. I think we're always dealing with ridiculous levels of complexity, because we tend to look at the symptom level where all the noise, all the complexity goes on. There's a whole load of cause going on there, which actually can simplify our approach. When Gordon was talking a little bit about outcome there, I've got probably a nice little example which actually starts, because this word outcome is something you don't define, it's something you sort of almost uncover. I'll give you a simple example. One of them is the Disney example, where people go into Disney. Believe it or not, one of the most commonly asked questions in Disney, so this was, I was told this here again 2 years ago when I was actually working over in Florida, is, what time is this thing called the 3 o'clock parade? Ridiculous, isn't it? It sounds really mad.
Is it 4 o'clock?
No, it's not 4 o'clock. It is definitely 3 o'clock. But that's the whole point. It's not what they're actually asking. Now, the first level of outcome-based thinking basically says, OK, so the 3 o'clock parade, it starts over there at 3 o'clock and it gets past here at 3:17. As outcome-based thinking starts to progress, this is what it says. Something like an answer comes out a little bit like this. It starts over there at 3 o'clock, it gets here at 3:15. I see you're a young mum, you've got 2 children, about 3 or 4 years old. It's Florida, it's 35, 37 centigrade, it's 70% odd humidity. You may want to go and move, say, 200 metres further down. There's you've got restrooms, you've got refreshments, you've got some air conditioning. Plus, you actually can be, as soon as it's gone past, you can be straight onto the front of the queue of the tram to take you to Magic Mountain or whatever. So in other words, it's not actually looking at where you are and extrapolating. It's actually looking at who is your customer differently and actually starting to think about the things that they perhaps haven't even thought of yet, which they're going to go and need. And that's a very, very simple example.
Simple, but I'm just sitting here thinking to myself of all the companies that I've dealt with, and they are always inward looking, aren't they? It's about their own inconvenience, about what they're doing. Anything to add to that, Gordon, do you think?
Yeah, I did some work with a university, and they brought me in because they had 13 strategies that they were looking to implement and in the 1 year, and they weren't really getting the right level of buy-in from the staff. And as I started looking at them, these 13 strategies gave 5 goals for each of the big departments. Some of the goals were competing, some of them were conflicting, and some of them didn't seem to really go anywhere at all. And when I looked at this, I said, this is crazy. You've got too many goals, and I'm not really sure what the outcome that you're looking for is. What would we do? And they asked me, are you suggesting we have one goal for the whole organisation? And I said, yes. And if we did have one goal, what would that be? And they said that they would want to be in the top 50 universities in the country. And at that time, they were number 85, 86, something like that. So we wrote that down as the goal. And I said, why is this important? And they said, well, first of all, our students want to get a degree from a reputable university. And if we're in the top 50, rather than number 88 or whatever the number was, we're actually starting to meet that need. Our staff want to work for one of the better universities in the country. And if we're in the top 50, we're starting to meet their need as well. And you could feel the buzz of excitement in the room as well. Yeah, great, we can do this. We know what's involved. And massive engagement, in line with what the staff want and the customers are looking for. But when we took this to the CEO, he said, no, we're not going to do that because we spent 150,000 to come up with these 13 strategies, and we're going to stick with those. So we can simplify, and we can come up with solutions which are aligned with employee outcome and customer outcome that will deliver great benefit and will drive engagement. But we just need to look for them. And sometimes, like in that example, the senior management in the university actually knew what that was. We
Really
just had to ask that question.
Listen, the pair of you, hold the thought for a moment, because as always, we've got just a short break just for a moment, but you are watching Business Connections Live. I hope you found today really useful, a bit of an insight. For me, it's very easy, I think, as somebody in business, if you're entrepreneurial, if you're running an SME or something like that, or even a large multinational, it is very easy to get lost in your internal systems, to be thinking about the effect on what happens in-house, what is happening to your business, when in fact it's all about super serving the customer. And if you do it in an intelligent way, you will see those results coming back to you. There's some more to come from our two guests in just a moment. Gordon Treadgold from Florida at the moment, international keynote and business speaker, and in the studio, Charles Bennett, managing partner of The Next 10. Now, if you're enjoying the program, it's great to have you with us. We are live. We're live every Monday, of course. And if you enjoy the program, what is really impressive at the moment are the number of people who are downloading the program from iTunes. Thank you very much indeed. I had a number of emails during the week as well. We were from people who are watching us on Roku. So if you do watch us on Roku, thank you very much indeed. You know, we're there every week. We've got our own channel on Roku, and it's great to know that you are watching us there. Also, I did put a post up on LinkedIn during the week asking your opinion on whether LinkedIn, the new version of LinkedIn, is working for you. And the consensus of opinion coming back, I would show you, but unfortunately not quite working at the moment, but the consensus of opinion coming back is people are feeling that LinkedIn or Microsoft are just missing the mark at the moment. They've taken things away that people use, and they're trying to sell it to us as if they've done us a favour. And people, strangely enough, have seen through this. So we'd love to invite Microsoft to come on the programme. We'd love somebody from LinkedIn to come on the programme just to explain what their policies are behind what they're doing, because there is a danger that people can nearly do everything on the free version of LinkedIn that they now do on Premium. Premium isn't that much different anymore. And, you know, you've really got to think about this. So if you are somebody that works for Microsoft that's just taken on the contract for LinkedIn, come on the show. Explain why you've done it and what the key benefits are to me as a user. Because at the moment, I am struggling to see what they are. Now, going back to iTunes, if you do download the program on iTunes, would you do us a big favour? Would you leave us a review and tell us how great we are? It's dead easy. All you've got to do is go to our website, just follow the link, click on the view in iTunes, you'll see all the programs there. all 172 of them at the moment, and just click on the ratings and reviews. That'll then take you down to write your review. Say something wonderful about Charles, say something wonderful about Gordon, and just say something wonderful about me. Give us a 5-star review, and that would be absolutely fantastic. We'd really appreciate that. That would be fantastic. So if you can, do that. Go online, do that maybe today. Tens of thousands of you are downloading on iTunes, so thank you very much indeed. We really do appreciate that and do enjoy the programs. So here we are, we're into our last quarter. You're watching Business Connections Live, and my guest today, Gordon Treadgold from the US. He's international keynote and business speaker. And in the studio, I have Charles Bennett, managing partner of The Next 10.
Can I just ask a question?
Oh, sorry. Yes, you were just saying. Was that you, Gordon?
It was. Yeah. I just wanted to pick up on what you were saying previously. Microsoft have now bought LinkedIn, and they're not taking a customer outcome perspective of the tool that they're providing.
No, they're not.
And they're disappointing their customers. Why would you do that? You had a tool that's grown like crazy, and now you're not thinking with the customer in mind. You're thinking about revenue. You're thinking about how can we do it differently, optimize profits, or whatever the reason is. And that is a perfect example of somebody who's not thinking in terms of customer outcome.
And so true, and that's exactly the results that I'm getting back. As I said, we posted something last week when I had my little tantrum about it, and the feedback that we have had back is exactly that. People are disappointed in what is happening with LinkedIn at the moment. And maybe over the past 6 months, maybe to a year, LinkedIn has grown into that prospecting tool. It's moved away from this whole area of recruitment, and people truly in business are using it as a business-to-business tool to grow their own organizations. And I just think Microsoft has just lost direction. They are seeing it purely as a way to make money at the moment. If you're paying premium in the UK, that's something like £47 a month. Yeah. To get the features that they've just taken away that they're telling me is a good thing, it will now cost £70. That is just clear profiteering. And while they can do it, I think Microsoft will actually just get on and do it.
Well, I think I agree with you, but also as well, not just on the money perspective. You know, you saw me speak in London a month ago, and off the back of that, I asked a lot of people to give me a testimonial on LinkedIn, and I mailed about 30 people to do that, and half of them mailed me back and said, "How do I do that?"
Yes. It's a very confusing interface now, isn't it?
Yeah, they've now hidden it. There's 3 dots in the top right-hand corner, and you have to understand that when you click on those, the things that were readily available previously have now been hidden under that.
It's interesting because Bill Gates used to go away for a week every so often and for thinking time. And while he was away, he would think of the new things and he would think about the concepts, what his customers were looking for. And that's where Internet Explorer came from, so we discovered on last week's programme. The issue is I don't think anybody is taking that time out anymore to think about the customer experience within Microsoft.
I agree with you, and I think sometimes we get updates for the sake of updates rather than to the benefit of the customer.
It's quite interesting here, but you're thinking about a company here which has got about 120,000 engineers alone. And these are people who are focusing on basically building new product, new application every single day. And they're trying to do it fast, they're trying to do it cheaply, they're trying to do it cheaper, faster, better than what they already have done. And the problem is they've basically added more and more and more, and they start to think, well, actually, we've now got to commercialise this a little bit. And this is where things start to fall down. It's back to that very traditional, this is what I've got, trying to make it better than it was already. And the poor old customer saying, you're dropping this on now? How do I do that? I can no longer see how I can get to that. I don't like the look and feel anymore. And in fact, a lot of the sharing that you used to be able to do on LinkedIn, in terms of the groups, and there used to be some great discussions, have all but disappeared. Selling today, if you're going to be doing prospecting today, you're going to far better prospect if you actually share value than if you tell people, I've got a great product.
Yes. Yes.
And so the opportunity to do things with LinkedIn, so people start to share real value, so you can identify people and ideas which are demonstrating value, as opposed to people and ideas who just say, I've got great value. They're 10 a penny. That's been traditional marketing communications, been going on for donkey's years. People now demand value, they want to see it, and they won't actually want to buy unless they actually see it. And LinkedIn has actually forgotten a bit about that.
The revolution starts here, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any comments concerning LinkedIn, listen, drop us an email, the studio at businessconnectionslive.com. And as I said, it is an open invitation. They may well have justifications, in fact, just there it is. They may well have justifications of what they have done to LinkedIn. It just goes to show you, it doesn't matter how big you are, you can get it wrong.
Absolutely. And they're doing it all the time. And it's all it takes. If you can, this whole idea we've been talking about, and we're talking about outcome-based thinking, this thing called customer experience, which is actually been around for donkeys, it just needs to move on. It's not something you have as a department for the organisation. It's something which actually has to be instilled in everybody into the organisation. So everybody stops thinking about what they do and start thinking about what they're trying to achieve, the value they're trying to achieve, the outcomes they're trying to achieve, and work backwards. It's a mentality. And a company such as Microsoft has got so much opportunity, and people say it's a problem. Actually, it's also a great opportunity, because only 1% of the organisations at the moment are actually getting anywhere near close to full potential. I fundamentally believe we're coming out of an information age, where we've gone for a proliferation of information to critical information. We're now starting to enter a customer age, where people are looking for ideas that are going to have value. Value to me now, at a single press of a button. I want to remove all the complexity, and I want to be able to get to the thing which is most important to me. That's why I think we're starting to get into customer age thinking, as opposed to all this information age. Let's stop talking about data, and let's start actually talking about the outcomes and actually the people and the customers, because ultimately our businesses are still around the people and customers creating outcomes which people are prepared to pay for. And if they happen to be really great outcomes, guess what? People are prepared to pay a premium.
Listen, it's been a fascinating show. We're nearly at the end of it. What we do, we always invite both our guests that we've got to actually give the key takeaways from today's programme. So, Gordon, if we may, we'll do you second. Is that all right with you? And Charles, sit straight down camera number one.
Okay.
Say who you are, where you're from, and the key takeaways that we should be. This makes it tough for Gordon, you see. He's not going to repeat everything you say, is he?
Gordon definitely won't. Gordon will be able to put some a lot of extra foundation to the work to what I'm going to be talking about.
All right. So say. So no big task then, okay? So we'll be with you in just a second, Gordon. All right, so say who you are, where you're from, straight down camera number one. The airwaves are all yours.
Thank you. Hello, my name's Charles Bennett. I'm from Next 10, here from London. We're talking about the next generation of customer experience and what it means to organisations, where we're starting to move from the concept of outcome from experience and the emotion attached with doing business with a customer to the outcomes that you go and create. Those outcomes are much more fundamental, and those outcomes are the reasons why organisations come back. There's companies such as Subway who do a great job at customer experience. They put it at the centre of everything they do. But for whatever reason, for some reason, customers are actually starting to move away. The last 2 to 3 years, revenues have started to drop. Restaurants have actually been closed. In consequence, you've got organisations which actually seem to be doing really bad customer experience. I used examples of Spirit Airlines. But the outcomes they seem to create, even if the experience is absolutely awful, has elevated companies like Spirit to be one of the most profitable airline brands in the world. So what we need to do is to be starting to think about the context of customer differently. At the moment, everybody's doing the customer experience in very much the same way. What we're trying to advocate is start to actually not only look at the experiential aspects of customer, but actually look at the outcome aspects of customer, and actually then work out what it means to your organisation, and then how you align it back into everything. Absolutely everything, your structures, your processes, your performance indicators, your management, your employee engagement, absolutely every single aspect. If you start to get to do that, then you've got a chance to actually become one of the 1% of organisations who can dominate your markets.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed.
Wow.
Gordon, wow, that's going to be a bit of a... So follow that then, as they say. If you don't mind, Gordon, if you say who you are, where you're from, sit up nice and straight so that we don't put your name all over your lower jaw there. And the airway, there you go. Thank you. Lovely. The airwaves are all yours. Don't forget to say who you are and where you're from. Where you go.
Hi, my name's Gordon Treadgold, and I'm a leadership expert, speaker, coach, and business consultant. I'm originally from Leeds, but I live now in sunny Florida. And we're talking today about customer experience and how companies can use that to leverage. And my view is that we're now moving towards a value economy where customers are looking for value, and we need to deliver value by providing a good service but also an outcome, and we need to be focused on making sure that we get the customer outcome right, and the better we can deliver that outcome, the more loyal that customer is going to be. And we can look at outcomes in a number of ways. We can just look at we've delivered the product, but what is it that the customer is actually going to use those products for? And I gave the example of Delray Beach Running Company, who they don't sell shoes anymore. They see themselves as a running club, and the outcome they help people with is they help people to complete either half marathons and marathons. And as they take people on that journey, they sell them running shoes, they sell them running equipment, they sell them the nutritional foods that they use. And what they're actually doing is now building a loyal customer base that comes back to them for every single running need that they have. Every one of their products is the same price as Amazon, but Amazon cannot offer the value and the outcome that Delray Beach Running Club does. And if you're a company that is just selling products and you're competing on price, sooner or later, Amazon will eat your lunch. We're already seeing Amazon moving to the office supply business, and within 1 year, they've taken $1 billion worth of business away from companies like Staples and Office Depot. So if you're focused on delivering products and you're competing on cost, then you need to move away from that and start looking at giving value to your customers. And this comes from outcome and also customer service. And if you can deliver both, you're going to create loyal advocates.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Fantastic advice, and interesting as well, this whole Amazon thing. It just goes to show that people are coming in and being disruptive in different marketplaces, aren't they? And
yes.
Amazon just seem to be going absolutely everywhere, don't they?
And people should be, I'll give you one, just as one of closing thoughts. The supermarket industry, as we see now, we're going to see a lot of the traditional players dropping out over the next 5 to 10 years.
Give us a name. Which one will be first?
I won't give a name who's going to be first, but I'll give you a name of a company who I think possibly, and it's just from what I've observed, is likely to potentially survive, and that's going to be Tesco. Went through all sorts of problems over the last 2 to 3 years. They're doing some very, very clever things to try and actually compete with the Amazon experience.
Now, we're practically at the end of the programme.
Sure.
But there's always, Gordon's got a fantastic book that's out, which I won a copy of actually, and it pained him to give it to me, but I won a copy of it when I saw him speaking. You've got an e-book that's available as well, and there's some documentation that people can download. We'll put the links below the programme, and we'll also put them on YouTube and wherever else the programme's going to show. So just tell us what they're going to get if they download these documents.
Okay. Firstly, they're going to have an e-book on putting a little bit more meat and context around the newer approaches to customer experience and what it means for organisations, which can be useful if you're both an SME or you're amongst the larger players in Tier 1 markets. The other book is a copy of Gordon's fast-based approach.
Let's ask Gordon. Gordon, what's that about, mate?
So that's my 4 principles that everybody needs for success. It's great that we're going to get people thinking about outcome-based and create projects, but they still got to deliver those projects. And FAST will help them, give them the tools and techniques to make sure that now you've got the right thing in focus, you can actually successfully deliver it.
Excellent, fantastic. So links to both of those are going to be available on the website. Can I just thank my 2 guests today, Gordon Treadgold, international keynote and business speaker, and in the studio today, Charles Bennett, managing partner of the Next 10. Gordon, if we want to go to your website, the website address is?
GordonTreadgold.com. Simplicity.
So, fantastic. Thank you very much. We'll go to Next 10. It is
www.thenext10.org. All letters, nexten.org.
fantastic. Listen, to prepare my guests, thank you very much indeed.
you.
A little bit of housekeeping just before we finish the show up. Now, I said this last week. Next week's show, we talked to Antonio Falco. Is that a yes? It is. Thank you very much. We're going to be talking about sales and sales technique. In the future, we've got Stuart Miller, Managing Director of Warwick Legal Network, will be with us. Nigel Risner, motivational speaker, will be joining us in the studio. Deborah Hume, Brian Williamson, will be talking about R&D tax credits. Ali Crump, Jackie Jarvis, Warren Knight. All to come. From me, Steve Harlan, and all my guests, have yourself a great week. See you next week. Bye for now. Bye-bye.